There is news that has recently come out that is impacting four of the Autonomy 5 conferences out there. The Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and Pac-12 are all implicated in this in one way or another. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football back at it again. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit the red subscribe button. You'll not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too. And if you're on Twitter or X, hit that follow button. Twitter fam is growing. X fam is growing too. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay. This serves as a letter to our dear friends at Oregon State and Washington State, because there is news that has recently come out that is impacting four of the Autonomy 5 conferences out there. The Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and Pac-12 are all implicated in this in one way or another. And at the end of the day, when we're looking at this from the holistic view, everything, all the interjecting parts, everything that's going on here, there's two schools, Oregon State and Washington State, that look like they're going to be at the short end of the stick. Let's go through that really quickly here to show you what I'm talking about. First one here is per Dan Wetzel from Pete Thamel, and he says, report on the Big Ten expansion talks. So remember here, Colorado left from the Big Pac-12 to the Big 12. There are 9 Pac-12 members left. They're trying to get a grant of rights deal going. The report came out. It was as low as $20 million. Meanwhile, the Big 12 got us something like 31.6. Remember that whole situation. So Oregon and Washington are probably sitting there thinking like, man, what the hell is going on here? However, sources have indicated earlier this week that Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti was doing due diligence on Oregon and Washington. Those have intensified in the last recent days, but the key remains the Big Ten doesn't want to be predatory, would only move if other dominoes fall in the Pac-12. I think that's a fancy way of saying there that they're like, well, we'll see what the whole situation is. Remember, one of those dominoes could be Arizona. In addition to the fact, could be, Arizona State as well. And Jason Shear says here from Expansion Crush, Big Ten presidents meeting tonight. There is an expectation within the Big Ten that this is all going to move fast. Per Jason Shear, we'll see what that means, but at the same time, man, we're seeing the fact that, again, Oregon, Washington, even rumored Stanford and Cal are targets of the Big Ten at this point. Remember, they could give them partial shares that would still beat the $20 million they're being offered right now. Now, that right there is Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. What happens with the Arizona schools? Well, it sounds like the Arizona schools may be coming as a package deal per Brett McMurphy. It says right here, I find it hard to imagine the state of Arizona Board of Regents would be willing to allow one to leave the Pac-12 while the other stays. That doesn't seem logical. That's what the perception is there. And again here, Jason Shear actually says not only do both of those schools move, but it seems like all 4 corner schools are together, meaning Arizona State, and Utah to be joining Colorado in the Big 12. So that's what the movement is there from the Pac-12's perspective. Looks like Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, Arizona State, and Utah are all implicated and strongly leaning towards that direction. Now that right there was from the Pac-12's perspective, impacting the Big 12 too. This right here is the ACC's perspective, which is impacting potentially the Big Ten, maybe even the SEC. Right here from Brett McMurphy, Florida State trustee Drew Weatherford. It's not a matter of if we leave the ACC, but how and when we leave. Damn. And again, if you follow out here on the Voice of College Football, he does a great job. My boy Mark Rogers out here. He had Genetics 56 as well as Tony Altamar on that podcast, basically going through the fact that what the Big Ten could potentially do here, Washington, Oregon, Stanford, Cal. We also see Miami, and we see Florida State, we see Clemson, North Carolina, potentially Virginia Tech too, maybe Virginia. So those are all rumored teams to be interested in them right now. So if you're an Oregon State fan and a Washington State fan, you're sitting back thinking, okay, I didn't really hear anything about us in there, and that's because you guys aren't being implicated there. So what we need to go through is a couple of the current headlines, what they mean, what a nuclear scenario would look like, and at the end of this video, we're going to go over something that I believe is going to be potentially a monumental option that could be realistic for Oregon State, Washington State. Like I said, it wouldn't be optimal, but it'll be something that you could be doing because I think right now all signs are leaning towards that point. So right now, the current headlines going on right now are the fact that Oregon, like you said before, Oregon and Washington are being examined by the Big Ten currently. Stanford and Cal are rumored too. And again, there's some rumors out there that they're going to be a quad package deal, make it easier for travel, whatever the situation is there. Some people say it's just Oregon and Washington, but we'll move on from that. Arizona has long been rumored to the Big 12, and that is a strong after CU left. And like I said before that, basically they're saying like that It would have been a lot easier for another to leave the Pac-12 for the Big 12 if one had done it first. Colorado already did it. Arizona State is also rumored to be linked to Arizona, and Utah is warming to the Big 12. Again, that's a rumor there. Again, Utah is already in that region, so we'll see what happens in that situation. We also know that Florida State will be leaving the ACC. Miami is also a long-rumored target of the Big 10 as well. That's what the current headlines are for sure. So there's a couple questions you need to ask yourself in this situation. Remember, you're Oregon State, you're Washington State. You're asking yourself these questions. What are the Pac-12's hopes if Oregon and Washington leave? Do we expect Stanford and Cal to remain with that husk of a Pac-12? Is there any hope that Utah, Arizona State all stay too? Those are questions you want to ask yourself. More than likely, all of those questions are kind of no. I would suspect Stanford and Cal would join some other league or go independent or something of that capacity. They would find themselves a way to do that in football. The next question is, if the Big Ten is targeting Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and North Carolina, do we expect the SEC not to pursue members? That's a fancy way of saying that's only 4 members of the ACC. There's 14. Do we expect just 4 to leave and then 10 to remain? Another question that's hard to say yes to. So what you're worried about right here is the nuclear scenario. Oregon State, Washington State. This is what you're most worried about. Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal go to the Big Ten. And again, right now there's 9. They could leave right now with no penalty, and all they have to do from Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal's perspective is pay more than $31.6 million, and you're fine. Now, they don't have that in terms of full shares for the Big Ten membership, but they can give them partial shares, but those partial shares are going to be way more than what the Pac-12 is paying, and potentially more than what the Big 12 is paying too. Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah, remember those 3 schools go to the Big 12's 13. You're at 16 members there. That's a solid situation there. The Big 10 and the SEC also, because remember here, let's just say something happens with the ACC's grant of rights. There's a lot of chatter out there that it might be happening as soon as 2025. We'll confirm that later. But the Big 10 and the SEC adds some combination of Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is an AAU institution, and in the South, Big 10 might be interested in that. Miami, North Carolina, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Those are the schools that are kind of being rumored there. We also see Big 12 with 16 members adds Boston College, Louisville, Pitt, and Syracuse. I should put North Carolina State in there as well. And then we also have the fact that the Pac-12 falls apart. The ACC does too, with no option for the Pac/ACC merger, considering the fact that all that would be left, Oregon State, Washington State, and then Wake Forest and Duke in the ACC. So yet again, and I've done this before, I did this with conference realignment. I did a video previously about a promotion and relegation schedule. I think it would solve a lot of situations here. However, a realistic situation here, Oregon State, Washington State, you're sitting back thinking, dude, what the hell? We are not implicated in any of this stuff. What are we going to do? You guys are going to do this. May I present to you the 18 across the map. So you look at this map really quickly here. I'm going to break this down for those of you who can't see if you're just listening to this. So obviously we have Oregon State and Washington State. Oregon State's just about a couple hours outside of Portland. Washington State's just outside of Spokane. Pretty big markets there. So they're there in the Northwest. Boise State is too. You got a little trifecta up there as well. Down in the Southwest, you have Fresno State, Long Ruben as well, UNLV, and San Diego State. Basically almost members of the Pac-12/Big 12. We also see Colorado State and Air Force International brand. Colorado State, Long Rumored, again, both of them about an hour outside of the Denver airport. Pretty easy access to that. Now, we also see here, we see UT San Antonio, Rice, and SMU. You've got Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio all linked in there. Do they command the full markets? No, but they have a presence in there. In addition to those 3, you also have 3 more in the Southwest, or the Southeast, at Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida. So you add those 3 as well. Also, remember here, the fact that we had add 2 more to get to 16 full members, we would have Wake Forest and Duke relegated over from the ACC. So you'd have a southeastern region here, you'd have a western region here, and then for football only, you would add Army and Navy. So right here, chicken salad made from chicken you-know-what. Look at this. So Oregon State and Washington State merge with all of the Big 12/Pac-12 rumored teams for expansion. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, UNLV, Colorado State, and Air Force out west. SMU, Rice, Tulane, UT San Antonio, Memphis, South Florida, Duke, and Wake Forest out east. At Army and Navy for football only. 16 full members, 18 football members. Conference would have 4 time zones, 4 AAU members. It would have Tulane, Rice, and South Florida. In addition to Duke, you'd have very solid brands. Memphis, Boise State, and Tulane have all gone to New Year's Six Bowls in the last decade. We have a presence in Southern California, the Northwest, Texas, and the South, including Florida. Now think about this. This is crazy here. Army versus Air Force, Air Force versus Navy, and Army versus Navy would all be conference games. If you check out the most watched games in the country, remember here, most of Air Force's views are versus Navy and versus Army. Same thing with Army versus Navy. It's one of the most watched games in the country. Those all would be conference games. Now, also think about this too. Rather than absorbing Mountain West schools, because that's what a lot of people said here, rather than absorbing Mountain West schools, you could cherry pick from the Mountain West American and the American, as well as the leftovers from the ACC to form a definitively fourth best league. Unfortunately, at this point, you're not being rumored. I don't see a situation where Oregon State and Washington State can go to the ACC. I don't really see a scenario where they're going to stick around with Cal and Stanford and do whatever the hell they want to do. I don't really see that situation happening. So with that, your best option then is you look down, find the best, and pull them up with you. Now, I know you're not going to be happy. You're not going to get as much money as you were with the Pac-12, probably, whatever the situation is there. However, this is really, really interesting there because the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12 definitively have solidified themselves. We obviously see the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC are above the Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of made up, but remember here, what the Big 12 does is they look at the members of that aren't able to go to the Big 10 or the SEC and kind of take from there. That's what you've seen with a lot of these realignment situations here. So if you're not able to be there, you go one step below them and you fill out the roster. Now, it's better than the American. It's better than the Mountain West. It is the best of the American and Mountain West, and with the additions of Oregon State, Washington State, Duke, and Wake Forest. Not a bad option there. Now, there are some important things to remember here that might hold this situation back. Remember here, even if one team remains from a conference, a lot of people say, oh yeah, well that conference is going to fall apart. That conference is going to fall apart. That conference is going to fall apart. You clearly know nothing about the rules. The way the rules work, and this is whether or not it's good or bad is a separate situation. It is the NCAA ultimately. If one team remains in a conference, that conference remains autonomy status. So if right now the SEC is at 16 teams starting next season, if 15 of them leave for some random reason and it's just Vanderbilt staying there, they still have autonomy status. Think about this. This is going to be a merger basically between the Pac-12 and the ACC. Granted, it's the merger between two of the Pac-12, Washington State, Oregon State, and two of the ACC, Oregon or Duke and Wake Forest. But still, with that, you would more than likely have an auto bid each year for the CFP. Remember, the CFP right now only has, for 2024 and 2025, it only has the top 6 conference champions. It's going to get interesting when you look at the math there, because there might be a scenario where maybe an American and a Mountain West team make it if this situation doesn't happen. But you see this, the CFP may adjust down from the 6 highest rated conference champions, but we would still have at least 4. Presumably the Big 10, SEC, and Big 12, and whatever this league would be called would be kind of, I wouldn't necessarily want to say a shoe-in, but you would have the highest chance of that situation there. Also, remember, too, the ACC grant rights still has to be dealt with, but chatter is picking up that it can be dealt with. So you're Oregon State and you're Washington State, and you're sitting back thinking, we're not listed for the Big 12. We're not listed for the Big 10. The ACC looks like if it gets plundered, we're not going to be a situation to have an opportunity to go there. What do? You turn down, you look at all the teams that I've mentioned before. SMU, Boise State, Tulane, Rice, UT San Antonio, San Diego State. I would think Duke and Wake Forest potentially as well. Maybe even the Service Academy schools. You do whatever you can to be as competitive as possible. Going independent is not an option here. You can't do that. I think what your best option to do is check this out, see if it works, and work your way from there. Are you happy about it? No. Is it way better than going independent? Absolutely yes. Hey guys, get in the comments right now. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. First of all, also that website that's on there that has that, where you can actually customize the different teams and different conferences. It's a pretty cool little map. I'll make sure I include it in the description here. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. I am out.